And we are live from a field and a barn. Well, a barn, a converted barn, and a field adjacent to a barn. We've got a wonderful week of, so I don't know. Yeah, we are. It's very hot in England. So we've
been talking about being here long enough. It's about time we showed it.
We should have said, yeah. And we got our mini network on wheels. So we basically wheeled the network on wheels to the field. And here we are. So we've got an action-packed. At the moment, there is an MVNO Congress going on in Brussels this year.
Correct.
Yes. And we couldn't be at that because we've been at events and doing other events. But what were the three main topics, Andy? You said were
three main topics were neo networks, which of course is the banks and what they're doing and branching out into the telco space.
Yes.
Travel sims, so eSIMs for travelers, and private 5G networks. They were the three main topics of today's conversation, the MVNO conference in Brussels.
Oh, good. Well, we built a neo network this time last year, and it's still yet to take off.
Mm-hmm.
I think we covered that one.
Crypto?
I think they will be quite big at some point. Yeah, they should be quite big, but they need the networks. There's some anti-fraud laws that are coming in, which will kind of force the banks to not just say fraud is an insurance problem or a consumer problem, but it's actually our problem. So hopefully that will take off. We are there to do more of those. But what else? Private 5G we'll get to in a minute, because obviously what we're doing here, we're actually doing it. We took our private 5G Land Rover to the event last year, and more people were interested in actually tracking. Our micro instance on Amazon of the tracking from our Trackergy brand nearly fell over. I think 10,000 people were following us driving down there. But last year, obviously, they coincided with the 79th anniversary of D-Day. Yeah. So for the second time in a row, we stopped along there, drove along the beach, whilst to see if any French police would try and stop us.
They're at lunch.
And they didn't, because they were at lunch. But so it's a shame. We should have driven our private 5G Land Rover there this year, but we're too busy. And I think
travel sims.
I think conferences are more interested talking about tech than actually seeing it working live.
Agreed.
Travel sims, we launched some other ones, but I mean they're interesting.
We've got a few brands in the marketplace, and if anybody wants to get into this space on any of the three hot topics, then give us a shout.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
interestingly, feedback from the MVNO conference from the chair there, James Gray.
We know.
Well, we know James yet, but he expects the MVNO market to increase significantly over the next 5 years, from 80 billion as it is now to 130 billion by 2030. So he's expecting a lot of growth, 8% a year.
That's kind of what it's been.
Yeah, for a
long time.
Typical markets in Western Europe are 15 to 20% of the market now, from a very small percentage 10 years ago, and it's dominated by 2 or 3 major players. But it depends how you define it, and we've had this discussion before, so I won't rehash that. But second brands are not MVNOs in my world.
No. They're anti-MVNOs, really.
They are. They're blockers, aren't they? Without a doubt. They're MNO blockers. That's all they are.
They're the MNO trying to control the MVNO market.
Yep.
Which, Hey, let's get on to proper topics, shall we? Adult topic. Private 5G. So AI was a big thing.
It was.
Big thing for 3 reasons. You see, we can do 3 things at a time as well, like the MVNO conference.
Well, of
course. So one of them was Vodafone. The most exciting one I thought was Vodafone saying that there's not enough 5G. We are at the bottom of the G7 table for 5G, and therefore there's not enough 5G for us to do AI properly. At the same time,
BT have announced an AI project to sleep cells. So when a cell is not particularly needed, or it's
not sleeper cells.
It's not sleeper cells. No,
that would have been more interesting.
Yeah, that's got a certain Hollywood ring to it.
Irish Christian,
but basically, they're going to turn off cells as and when they don't need them, or turn the power down, driven by an algorithm. So let's be honest,
How hard can that be?
Yeah.
What could possibly go wrong?
Well, I don't even want to begin talking.
But the
about
good
that.
news is we've got an MNO in charge of that, so it can't possibly go wrong, can it?
The old state, telco. So, I mean, good luck with it, but I think they'll be struggling. So you may get interesting coverage issues with EE, I suspect, over the next couple of years.
And just how it's the AI did it.
And it'll be the AI that did it. And yet on the other end of the spectrum, you've got Vodafone saying there's not enough bandwidth to I guess to cover AI, and then BT are turning it down. So something's wrong.
2 kilowatt hours a day, though, weren't they? Something per site, which is 3.5 million kilowatt hours a year or something. It was, I mean, the small amounts each day account to a huge amount, which is, heavens knows, £500,000 in real cash terms or something like that. So,
well, that's part of what we do with our project, is measuring how much power is used. But honestly, in the non-legacy, the air interface is not the biggest energy consumption by a long way. The air interface is, and if they use standalone, etc. I mean, we're running the whole. We actually, so in the Royal Show the week before last, it was a proper British summer. So we're in waterproofs for a lot of the time, and we pared down the solar. But we still managed to get through, including powering the Royal and VIP party overnight with a solar project. Obviously, it was using batteries, but the good thing is in the UK we are quite north, and so by 4:30 in the morning, when the party was just getting started, the solar kicked in.
Yeah,
but in the event we did last week, we net produced electricity, and that was only, I can't remember, 300 or 400 watts. But yeah, the area, I mean, honestly, where BT needs to save energy is the core network will be. I mean, the last big core that we put in for 1 million users, the last two that we put in, were using 6 figures of energy at the old prices, nearly 7 figures of energy at the new prices. So they've got gigawatts in the network that need turning down. But anyway, the last thing we need in the UK, if we're at the bottom of the table, is to have networks turned down. I think with small cells, it is definitely the case, because we can, I suppose, I mean, it could be just overnight, but again, if there's an emergency, etc. I mean, it's just such a small. This is a bit like how we treat a lot of things with energy consumption. We put some LED bulbs in, and suddenly go, our house is now green. It's like, well, I think you've got, the LED bulbs will probably make themselves back in 3 to 7 years.
Yeah.
But the real issue is obviously the insulation, the drafts under the doors, etc., etc. How you're heating and cooling, how efficient you are, and just turning the lights on and off. So yeah, we need more private 5G, and to get back at the top of that table, which we're definitely.
We're definitely the leading edge of it, and I think one of the reasons we wanted to do this in the field is because over the last month we've done 3 events, each being more complex, proving private 5G, proving the green angle, proving that we could do this on a private access network to the various different to the various different groups that's needed. And there's a certain event called Glastonbury, as I found out to my cost going through the traffic this morning, is happening soon. So there's a private network deployed there for the emergency services, which is a perfect example for that. And
interestingly, in the last event, we've got a video that we'll probably be making live tomorrow of one of the ice cream guys. I think you did, and there was a coffee vendor. Basically, they had massive queues. Obviously, it was scorching hot, and one of the other benefits of us giving them the private 5G is that they were spending less time taking payments, so they could take more payments quicker.
Yeah, it was. And one of his comments was it was super fast. So he was able to get payments through as quicker than he could sell ice cream. So I agree with Christian. It probably increased his productivity in actual fact.
Yeah, and there's a real business case there, of course.
Of course there is, because people were just tapping and away, and that was it. The transaction was approved, so there was no delays whatsoever. So it was a great benefit.
Good. So if you want to know more about us literally being in a field, as we are now, doing trials on private 5G and private networks and all that kind of stuff, then it's on our company website. But again, if you need to know more, then please shout. You can ask questions on I guess on a Wireless Wednesday or elsewhere.
And we will be running out some of our AI. I think we'll have to trial some of it. So we have some AI built into to monitor the network, etc., but also to count. So at some of the events we're going to be at are livestock events, so we'll be counting animals. And we do count the amount of people. It's just getting and the quality of the air, etc. But yeah, I think there's we just need more of them, don't we?
Yeah.
Yep.
That is very clear. So what was there was a third AI topic, was there, or am I?
No, there was just the two.
There was a two.
I think the next one that probably logically follows on is a Verizon announcement. Now, we've had Vodafone announcements probably 2 years ago, and then they've re-announced this year. I might be doing a disservice to say it was a year ago, but and it was about the time of the MVNO conference last year, I think was Amsterdam. But they announced that they were doing a network in a box.
Yes.
Vodafone used Raspberry Pi, and have now, whether they've commercialised it and launched it, I don't know. My guess is not. But Verizon have said they've done trials in one of the football, baseball stadiums over in the States, and they've shipped some of these down to various stadia in Brazil. And the way that they pitch it, it's network in a box, but it can be standalone and hook into the existing network, existing licensed spectrum or fiber. And the more I start to take that apart, quite frankly, it's not a standalone network. It's,
or in a box.
Or in a box. It can differentiate your customer base by cohorts. So if your objectivity is to give a different service to VIPs, almost a network slicing solution light, or prioritize emergency services traffic, then it does that. So
because there's so many real examples of that in the market.
Well, yeah, exactly. So it does do that, but it feels to me, and feel free to have a different opinion, guys, but they've not announced a buzzword which doesn't quite meet what's on the...
Well, they said 50 cells, don't they? Well, I think one of the things people really struggle with the network in a box thing is kind of the handover, and you're not actually building a network. It's the network which will hand over and hand off is planned years in advance, deployed months in advance, and there's fiber between them. So if you were to deploy a 50 cell network in a stadium, you'd need to either have loads of people with fusion splicers and or have fiber actually, the fiber network deployed. But it's not kind of I'll just turn up and plug it all in.
There was a limitation on the number of devices as well. I think they've said that you put between 40 and sort of 60
40
devices per cell.
Oh, right. Really? That's dreadful.
Not very many, is it?
No. I mean, we've got hundreds on the cells that have been powered by solar panels.
Yeah, and the coverage with it. So
is that just network operators trying to?
I think it's a buzzword, and issuing a technology to fit a buzzword. That would be my take on it. I don't want to be too hard on Verizon. They're a good business and a good network,
but I think people in mobile networks don't jump on buzzwords, do they? Bandwagons. It's not. They're too busy.
No comment.
No comment on that one.
No.
Orange. is deploying 5G standalone networks for broadcast during the upcoming Olympic Games in France.
Yes, it is all over France.
It's good.
So they obviously realise that there is a need, where crowds gather, that they've got to bolster their networks. So the private 5G is ideal for that, isn't it?
Well, I've seen. I mean, I hope the same people who organise the football in France are not organising the.
It's in Germany.
No, but no. When was the Football World Cup when people were storming the stadium?
Yeah, that was.
That was France, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So maybe they can have the camera AI. So this time they'll see and be able to,
if they've got the bandwidth.
So let's get serious and not poke fun at our froggy friends. Although that is a whole subject in itself. I think this is good. No? I mean, every time I put a post up, all of my friends who are football fans, which is sadly way too many, say, I need it in this stadium, I need it in that stadium, I need it in the other stadium. And yet here we are. I mean, I went along to Arsenal about 15 years ago because a catering company there was one of the most forward-thinking, and they wanted to have a way. And we're working with, this is when we're doing the Nokia festival guides. And again, one of the problems in the football stadiums is obviously you've got a very short period of time when a huge amount of people want a pie and a pint. And being able to see and use AI and see when they're coming, have the order ready, etc. But honestly, people just want connectivity, don't they? I mean, that's
they do.
So I think it will be good if they have. But standalone obviously means it'll just be for the. I mean, I don't know if people. Standalone basically is not a public network. It's a network where. So we deploy standalone networks in the events, and I suppose we should cover this quickly. But it basically means that we have to give you a SIM to use there. And so I don't know whether, but again, we can have a barcode, and people can get those eSIMs very quickly and pSIMs. So it'll be interesting to see what they're doing. But it is a fantastic. I mean, it had to happen at some Olympic Games at some point.
Yeah. I mean, and the Olympics Committee, I would assume, behind this are driving the fact they want discriminatory connectivity. So, for the organisers and the VIPs and all the rest of it. So, I think what Orange is doing is very good. I think it's very clever. And I think they'll execute very well. Yeah, we'll see. But I think the event's 1 month, and we'll see by the end of August or whatever.
And just to add, they are above us on the G7 5G table already. So.
The only way is up, as they say.
Yes.
But we've got some opportunities to have a look at this. Also, we're working with Cardiff, so the Millennium Stadium, which we've not.
I don't think we're allowed to say that because a network operator has the rights over that.
On the Millennium Stadium.
Yeah, but they can't stop us driving over here.
No, but I mean, we're working with Cardiff to look at the connectivity around the stadium and therefore alleviating some of the pressures where you get high density traffic. So
when your network's on wheels, though, you can just. Not that we would do that. We should wheel it in.
Yeah, exactly. So whether we go into the stadium or not. But the only thing in terms of stadium, I mean, the most impressive I've ever seen was Fenerbahce in Turkey, a Turkish football side, and they've
who have their own MVNO as well,
and they have their own MVNO, and the next stage of their evolution, and they've worked on it. I've not looked at it for probably about a year, to be honest, but the next stage of their evolution was to be able to sell virtual tickets. So almost you get a seat within the stadium, and from the virtual you can choose your seat in virtual reality, watch the game live as though you were in the stadium. And also for people that are actually in the stadium, you can start to use various technologies to either market to them, run competitions and stuff. It's very clever, and I'd be very interested to see how much that has taken off. But again, that's a private network within that whole stadium.
We should do that next week. We can have virtual deck chairs.
And I suppose, Carl, picking up on that for stadium and things like that, the e-cargo bikes with the 5G radios contained in them are small enough to actually drive into the stadium, aren't they? You know, and locate at various places. So
they are, and you can pick off capacity issues which you'd normally get at half time, because deploying a network in an environment with a high density of people for its peak usage, which clearly is streaming, is probably not an economic model. So you want to do something whereby a network on wheels type solution goes in and picks up that peaky demand.
Yes, yeah,
and it can control the away fans as well, because if they're getting a bit rowdy, you can just drive the network away from them. So
There is,
it'd be good for Liverpool fans,
yeah,
because they do get a bit touchy.
mm-hmm. Just to declare an interest, I am a Liverpool fan. However, moving on.
Their songs are very entertaining. But moving on, so yes, the e-cargo bikes will actually even fit. There's one version that will fit into small lifts, and one of the reasons we sort of started doing that is that we did put the Land Rover in an event, and it was very successful about 2018. And then in some of the other events we couldn't do it because they're on the first floor or whatever. There's e-cargo bikes. And we will, I don't know if we can announce this yet, we can't say what it is yet, but there will be a major exhibition where we will not only have the Land Rovers, but we will have the e-cargo bikes and a little racetrack. And it will be this year, and it will be very exciting, and we'll be driving them around on a little track. And I don't know that's the plan, I think. Yeah, let's hope it happens.
Yeah, that will happen.
That's the plan. That's exactly.
So the other reason I was mentioning Fenerbahce and the augmented virtual reality was what struck me. There's a report out in the last few days saying that devices for augmented and virtual reality have basically dropped off a cliff. They're down best part of 70% year on year.
Was this like the Oculus?
Yeah, so is it another Google Glass type scenario? Burnt brightly for a while, but needs rethinking and redesigning. I'm just, can we talk about devices on a regular basis? Just interested in getting people's views on that.
Well, it comes back to the point, isn't it, that I think it would be lovely to have a world where instead of just 10%, 70, or everybody who wants a pie and a pint in the halftime can get one. But ultimately, and I think this comes back to a point that was brilliant, and James Bodie made when we were at the launch of what we're doing now, the DSIT, all the DSIT grants in September last year. One of the network operators was saying, yes, but is it 5 nines? How many nines is it? And it's like, people don't give a monkeys about 5 nines. They just want connectivity. If I'm in a stadium, and I think it comes back to the Olympics, in a massive crowd, you want connectivity.
Yeah.
And it goes in order, right? So I think it's more important that if you do want a pie and a pint, that you can pay for it. Order number one, and we can do that very easily. And just being able to be connected. And I think that's the next level, because we're sort of controlling, we're doing VIPs, and obviously part of what we're doing is to do HDD, high density demand networks. And we're basically proving that we can do thousands of people at a time. And that's where it has to be, where the network operators are, with real facts, told that no, you do not need to have networks that you need to turn down with AI to save 2 kilowatts. We need a network that uses that actually uses a total of that a day, rather than saving a bit by turning it off. And yes, they can give all the connectivity that's needed, and the way to sort of limit that is because there's no point. I mean, Glastonbury, the one that you pointed out, I mean, last year, One and Vodafone turned up with a network, and it's just a question of a massive network with a massive diesel generator polluting all of the crowd, and it's a question of when will that fall over, because they're not changing any of the profiles. So everybody can start streaming Elton John, and when everyone starts streaming Elton John, it falls over.
That's what happens next.
So the private networks we are able to control and stop people streaming, and therefore abusers, that 5% who abuse and use 95% of the bandwidth are not using it. And so ultimately, you'll get people at the game just sending a picture. You can't have everyone at the game sending a video or live streaming, but you want to send a selfie. And I think that's what we saw in the VIP party. There was virtually no traffic. And then at 12 o'clock, when they're all sent home, we had this massive peak of traffic. I can't remember how many gigs. This is when we should have had our resident Worcestershire Council member who loves who's the gig watcher. But there was gigs of traffic of people sending selfies of themselves at OKR, at Royal Show, and that's what people want. It's and I think that's where we're going, because obviously part of why we're doing this is that the PSTN has been turned off, and the UK government has pledged, like most places, that you should be able to use a mobile network anywhere where you live with, I think, 500 megabits, which is enough to do things that don't involve streaming, and to be able to send a text anywhere in the British Isles. So if you are, if you do fall off fall off a cliff, fall down a mountain as you're trying to get up it, that you can send a message, and that's what we need to be doing. And the way to do that is mobile networks on wheels.
Yeah, for peaky demand. Well, I know we're almost at the end. I have to say I've not got a lot else in terms of stuff that's caught my eye this last week. I don't know if you have, Andy.
No, because we've been very busy on doing everything else.
We've had one or two things on,
yeah. So no. So I was just keeping my eye on the MVNO conference. That was the thing for me. But obviously, as that progresses, there'll be more news bites and things for next week. But I think it's probably the first day today. So
yeah, no, there will be.
Yes.
So
I did just look. It's 2 kilowatt hours per site per day.
Yeah.
Right.
2 kilowatt hours is nothing.
No, it's not. But if you multiply it by the number of sites, they're talking about 3.5 million kilowatts. I don't know if it was a month or whatever it was. So it was a huge amount. If you multiply that by 20 pence or whatever kilowatt hour is, you can soon see the same.
It is, yeah. But again, the air interface is. I mean, the vast majority of the savings should be in the core network.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be cynical. I mean, if you turn them all off completely, they'd save a fortune.
And we'd go back.
Yeah, okay.
A little bit.
A little bit facetious.
So are we going to be... I think we should sell virtual deck chairs. We can stick a 360 camera.
It's our new office, at least until August.
Very nice too.
But, all right, then, on that note, this is...
We were going to do the Wireless Wednesday last week from the event. Was it last week? Oh no, last week's we failed because I had it on a test network.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, another thing. One of the things, I'm glad that we brought this up, because it is amazing how a fixed test network on a fixed network can be less reliable than a wireless network in the middle of nowhere. Especially, depends who's running it, of course. But yeah, the previous one, we're on Wireless Wednesday. We're busy trying to do that there, but I think Andy and I were at the top of a scissor lift.
We were
strapping an access point to a telegraph pole for the VIP tent, or for the Royal Paddock, sorry. And yeah, these are things you've got to do. But we will manage it at one of the events. We're at, I think we should do it at the Food and Drinks Festival events. And we'll have an excuse to do one of these with a glass of something in our hand.
Something cold and well earned.
And,
well, I think the big thing to note was, both the events that we've been to, all three, is that the assistance that we were able to give to the traders to allow them to keep trading was huge.
Yeah.
Beyond doubt, and they've all given glowing praises, to the fact that they could actually get connectivity, and that they could continue their business. So I mean, yes, for everybody that doesn't know, it wasn't made available to the general public. It was just for the traders, but it worked very, very well indeed.
VIP.
But this is a key thing we need to remember, right? I mean, why we're doing is that not only are we at the bottom of the 5G table, but there are, I mean, one of the calls that we had today about the food festivals, there's nowhere where they go where there's decent coverage. The network just falls over.
And they don't have alternatives.
And they don't have alternatives. And this is not about just the traders selling. It's about people being able to do, work from home. We have a big problem in the UK in that everything is focused around London.
Yeah.
And obviously in London, the network works no matter how many people turn up. Yeah. In the Olympics, it didn't. In central London, we didn't even notice. Yeah. I mean, one of the road races went past the front of our house. Didn't even notice. But in the rest of England, it's a big problem. And the 4 counties that are in our consortium basically say, and these are big tourist areas. So it's Bath, Bristol, Cardiff, Worcestershire, Shropshire. Even a dentist convention in Bristol can bring down the network. Few too many tourists on the wrong type of weather. And there are people who have okay coverage. There's people who have no coverage, and we've got to change that.
Yeah,
and that's the key. Obviously, it's lovely to give people to do selfies in a VIP tent or in a football stadium, but this is ultimately about getting coverage here, so we can do the smart farming, and that's where we bring back and we can wrap up with. I think the Vodafone one was the best one about there's not enough bandwidth to do AI. There's so many AI tech that we're going to be putting in here, in the agri-tech AI that we're going to be putting in, and the e-cargo bikes will enable that because they're a lot lighter and more nimble than a tractor. But ultimately, there's no point having this amazing tech that can see the state of potatoes under the ground when the only way you can do it is on a tractor at the moment, which weighs too much, but B, you don't have the network connectivity. And we've got the network connectivity and a light vehicle to do it all in one. So we'll be bringing more of these things, and who needs to go all the way to Brussels to discuss things when we can do them right here? That's it.
And much more informative too.
Another incisive look into the wireless network. And to be honest, isn't this? I hate to use the buzzword, but I do love the EV cafe when they say, and this is funner. Can we pinch that from them? Or are they going to sue us?
Yeah.
We'll ask permission.
Well, once we get an EV over to them, I think. Exactly. But this is definitely funner.
Exactly.
Than being stuck in Brussels. Although I could do some frites and some moules, but they're out in the middle of nowhere in some airport. See,
are they?
Yeah, I hate it when they put events in the middle of nowhere. It really, it's.
Then again, we can provide coverage for them. on that.
On that note, sorry, you're about to.
No. And I guess to everybody on there, apologies because I'm sat in the middle of a field with hay fever. It's not the cleverest idea, but it's good to show what the agenda that we went through. So
and it was too hot in the barn.
Yeah, it was. There is that too. But yeah, on that note, we're a few minutes over, so apologies for that, and see you again next week.
And Andy's going to be here tomorrow.
Yep.
So
So see you again next week.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Bye, everybody.